Good evening, I'm Jeff Lyons. It is Wednesday night, January 21st, time for the 14 First Alert Weather Show at 9 o'clock. I'm watching your comments and questions here on the 14 News Facebook page, so you can fire away and I will get to those about halfway through the program. Obviously, we have a big weather story coming up here this weekend with a winter storm watch already in effect for Saturday and Sunday, and our alert days, which have been in place since Monday, to give you the heads up that snow, impactful snow, and maybe some heavy snow are likely this weekend, followed up by bitter cold temperatures, dangerous wind chills potentially too. So a lot to unpack here. We're going to take it step by step. We've got unlimited time here on streaming, so I can give you a little more information than I typically can on the TV side of things. First off, the bullet points here are pretty simple. That for this weekend winter storm, we're expecting the onset or arrival of snow early on Saturday, perhaps late morning into the afternoon. It would gain intensity then through Saturday afternoon and evening and early Sunday morning. Most of the area, at least going by today's model data, stands to receive 5 or more inches of snow. There will be pockets that don't get as much and places that get quite a bit more. And that's still a detail that is in the works. The when and the where, or the where and how much. Dangerous cold then will fill in, and that will become the weather story from late Sunday all the way through Tuesday. We have a long spell here of days below freezing, well below freezing, coming up. So a cold wave, if you will. All of our counties now in that winter storm watch. It's worth noting as you go farther north, up around Indianapolis, Terre Haute, the impacts are not expected to be quite as great. However, if you're going south, say down through Nashville, Chattanooga, maybe even Atlanta, all the way through Memphis and Dallas, it is going to be a significant travel hazard in all of those areas as this winter storm unfolds. Our model brings snow in as early as 10 o'clock Saturday morning and then continues it into the afternoon and evening. The snow model, and whoops, that dropped out there, but I wanted to show you some numbers. Now again, when we look at numbers still at this stage, it's just guidance. These cannot really be relied upon to be the actual number, but the reason I'm showing them is to give you a sense for, the intensity or how much snow is expected. And even our model is cranking out maybe a couple of inches of snow within 4 or 5 hours, which would be a pretty good rate of snowfall if that in fact happens. And again, it's still an if, remember, at this point. The European model was the one, or is the one rather, that has been latched onto this idea of a winter storm this weekend. Since last weekend, there was a signal in there for wintry weather, but oftentimes there is at several days out and then it dissipates. But this has not, and it has been fairly consistent in keeping the snow over the tri-state with a band then of freezing rain or ice down across the Mid-South, places like Nashville and Memphis and Little Rock. The snow continues through early Sunday, and then the deformation zone, or the area where we're getting the snow, kind of wraps out, and snow should wind down then on Sunday night, followed by a big punch of Arctic air behind it. Now I'm going to show you again raw guidance numbers, so we take these with a big grain of salt, and you'll notice, and of course we've been looking at these every night here on the stream show. It didn't get you last night, at least not here on Facebook. We had a glitch with Facebook and couldn't get on, but hopefully you're seeing me tonight. Anyway, these numbers are tremendous. 14, 15 inches of snow probably will not happen, all right? The idea, though, is that we're expecting heavy snow in these areas, maybe not to that extent, but it certainly turns your head. And I'll give you kind of a comparison here. Also, the ice forecast here could be very hazardous across the Mid-South here in Tennessee. But again, the numbers can't really be trusted verbatim at this stage in the game. The GFS model has been the enigma here all week. It's kind of flipped and flopped. First we were having snow, then we weren't. Then we were, then we weren't. Well, today, and really it started last night, the two models seem to have come together, at least in principle, on how the system will look, how it will play out. Amounts, of course, are always going to be a problem at this stage in the forecast process, but I will show you that what the GFS is now portraying is a northerly track to the storm, which would put snow across the tri-state, and a band of ice to the south. So that is consistent with the European, and then ending sometime late Sunday with the colder air spilling in. Temperature-wise, both models are locked in pretty tight on that idea of an Arctic blast behind it. You'll notice that today, anyway, the GFS models are more reasonable, and I'm not just saying that because they're lower, although that's part of it, but they also, just like the European, illustrate where we're expecting heavier snow. Now, to get 16.8 in Bowling Green would be, you know, a once in a 50-year type of event. So to kind of give context here, you know, you have to look at climatologically what's happened in the past. What is a typical snowfall? What's an outlier kind of thing? And we're going to get into that in a minute. So when I see numbers like 3-4 inches, yeah, that is reasonable, and that falls within the criterion of a winter storm warning if that does come to pass. And then our ice totals, again, these numbers are lower, but still depicting an icy band there across the Mid-South. Now, I mentioned earlier context and climatology, right? Like what's the biggest that's ever happened, and you know, how often does that happen? Because that plays into how we interpret model data. And just as an example, the biggest all-time ever snowfall measured at Evansville. Now, this is for one day, a calendar day, by the way, and that's an important distinction. You know, sometimes the snow will fall in 2 days and you'll get, you know, 10, 11 inches. But for a one-day, calendar day, 24-hour period, the most we've ever had was back in 2004 on the 22nd of December. We had 19.3 inches of snow. Notice how that dwarfs the next highest number, which was set in 1993 on February 25th. We had a little over 10 inches. And then 1971 was a strange year for snow. This happened on April the 6th, really late in the season, and we had 8.6 on that date. And then back on the 4th of March in 2015, we had 8.5 inches. And then you go down to 7 and 6.9 there, way back in 1958. And those are the 6 biggest snows, one-day snows, recorded at Evansville. So what I did is I looked at the data, the historical data, going back to the period of record, which starts in 1897 at Evansville and then comes up to the present. I took the instances of 8 or more inches of snow, 6 or more, and 4 or more to kind of give you a sense for how often that happens. And at 8 or more, there have only been 4 events in that category. That would render roughly a recurrence of about every 32 years or so. So not once in a lifetime, but infrequent, very infrequent. 6+ inches of snow in a day happens around here about every 7 years or so, 7.5 years. Now, this is not an exact thing. You know, you could have back-to-back years and then nothing either way. I did straight math for this. And 4 inches of snow is fairly common, and that it tends to recur about every 4 years or so. And we just had a 5-inch snowfall last January, I believe about a year ago now. So, you know, that's in the realm. And in looking at the models, the 5 inches kind of seems like a spitball number to alert you it's going to be a more significant snow than the typical 1 or 2 inches out there. The other thing that we need to really keep an eye on and be mindful of is the extreme cold. Because after we get the snow pack on the ground, that's going to keep us cold. We could see low temps drifting down to the low single digits. And with any wind at all, that's going to put our wind chills down at 0 to 10 below 0, which is dangerous. You can get frostbite, you know, in 30 minutes if your skin isn't protected. And if we do get the snow, lots of folks will be out probably trying to sled and shovel and things like that. So we just want to make you aware that that cold is also equally, if not more dangerous than the snow itself. So just to sum up, our confidence is increasing. I talked with Byron and Michael and Arden today. We kind of laid out our plans to keep you covered here through the weekend. And we all looked at the same data and agreed that everything's kind of coming into sync, at least as of today. Now it's Wednesday, right? Thursday, Friday, and then the onset Saturday. In 2 days, we could still see some changes, even significant changes are possible. So this is the best data that we have today to pass along. We are still uncertain on the exact track that the storm will ultimately take. If it shifts a little more to the north, that's going to throw snow farther up into Indiana, may bring ice even into our southern counties. And by the same token, if it shifts south, we could see far less snow than the 5 inches that we're kind of giving as the average. Okay, and so that kind of covers those two bases. The dangerous cold has been the consistent signal all along, and we're confident that we will see those low temperatures around the area. Right now we're at 37 degrees. We were down or up to 41 today, so it did warm up as promised, making this the warmest day of the week. We started at 24 this morning, and actually we hit 42 today. I think I said 41. But anyway, we got our low 40s, and that made us about 12 degrees warmer than yesterday. Our low this morning was a degree colder than the average, and our high was right on the money with where it should be here in January. So we fill in the calendar here with a 42, the warmest day here since, I guess, Friday there when we had 45, and still no rain or snow there to add to our totals. So we're somewhat dry now for the month. And even with the snow, we're expecting higher snow to water ratios. In other words, we use a 10 to 1. 1 inch of liquid would be 10 inches of snow. This situation, we may be looking at ratios, say, 15 to 1. So 1 inch of liquid would generate 15 inches of snow, a fluffier snowfall out there. So it probably will not alleviate the abnormally dry that we have out there. No problems tomorrow, and it'll be a good tomorrow and Friday to get out and get gas and get your groceries and stuff like that before we get the snow here over the weekend. That front that came through overnight did give us a little light freezing drizzle and freezing rain in western Kentucky this morning. We had a rash of school closings and cancellations there. Everything, of course, melted off, but we just had that problematic about 2-hour window where everything froze up. All right, here's the big picture, and you see here into Saturday afternoon, we should be fully involved with the snow at that point, and then continue on into the weekend. 25 tonight, 38 tomorrow, no weather problems there. Next 7 days, of course, we keep those first alert weather days in place for Saturday, Sunday. And our temperature and precip outlooks are not populating today. That product must not have come down. And even with all the winter weather and talk of snow, we still have time for a pet pick, as we always do here on the 9 o'clock stream show. That's Paisley and Princess from Riley Seibert. So we'll watch those two stay warm. And I'm going to look at your questions and comments now and try to address any concerns that you have out there. So here we are. And I will just kind of go down the line here. Let's see, Amber Paul. Okay, a lot of you remembering old, other years where we had big snows. Let's see, and now, okay, we got Steve Fiddler saying the Weather Channel saying 12 to 18 inches. Yeah, they would say that. I'm not watching the Weather Channel. I mean, we have to look out for here, and this is the best information that we have to go on here. So right now, it would be reckless to say that we're going to have 12 to 18 inches of snow Saturday, Sunday on a Wednesday. There simply isn't enough confidence in the models to make that kind of a prediction, and that's why we don't do that. Now, I showed you the numbers, but I hope I made it very, very clear these are not the numbers. But, if you're hearing those big totals or seeing them on Facebook, that's what's going on. It's clickbait, basically, in social media, because there's no way to know how much snow we're going to get 4 days out, 3 to 4 days out, okay? So I'm not going to get on the soapbox on all that. You can make your decisions, but trust me, we're working very hard here to get it right for us here in the Tri-State. All right, let's see. And the crazy cold out there, says Jake. Okay, let's see here. Well, we got quite a few. How much snow will fall in Morganfield? Well, we don't know yet. Right now the trend has been for heavier snow amounts in western Kentucky, lesser amounts as you head up into Indiana and Illinois, but it's simply too soon to give you actual, absolute numbers other than a range. And right now we're using kind of 5 inches as the range. And the reason we're using that number, obviously we've looked at all, I showed you the numbers that we're looking at from a climatological standpoint in a winter storm, 4 to 5 inches of snow is a reasonable expectation. And keep in mind the impact, that is getting around, driving, cancellations, closures, are not really tied to how many inches of snow, right? We've had everything shut down with just a little 1/4 inch glaze of ice or even snow out there. It becomes an issue, at least on the accumulation. You know, when you get upwards of 8, 9 inches of snow, it's even harder to get through, even harder to clear. But for, you know, most of us just trying to get to work or the store or school or church or whatever it is, we're looking at impact, and there will be impact. It'll be harder to get around, it'll be hazardous to drive, and of course the cold adds a double layer of danger out there too. So let's try not to focus so much on the numbers. I know it's like catnip. I focus on them too. I mean, I'm just like you. I want to know how many inches as well. But the fact of the matter is we simply don't know at this stage. The only thing I can tell you with certainty is the models the last 3 days have been pointing to accumulating snow and maybe a lot of it across the area. Let's see. Christy Neighbors really hope that no matter the amount, everyone stays safe. Yeah, that's my point. We've got to look at just the impacts, how it's going to affect you. What are the expected travel conditions if traveling north? Maria Rust. Well, that's a really good question. You know, earlier today I talked to our police chief here in Evansville, Philip Smith, and of course the police are in Disney World with busloads of kids down there for Cops Connecting with Kids, and they were scheduled to fly back to Nashville Saturday. And he asked me what should they do, and I said, well, I would try to come back Friday if you can. If not, I would go north, go fly into Indy or somewhere and, try to come back. And so that group they're going to get into Indy Saturday morning and then drive back. I still think they could run into some snow, but hopefully, not on a big hazardous kind of way. So these are the kinds of questions, that we have to answer here and that we have to try to figure out if you've got a trip planned or something like that. My advice is if you could go early tomorrow or Friday, do it. There's no risk for snow on those 2 days. On the back end of it, just be prepared, even Monday, Tuesday, especially with those cold temperatures, whatever we get is not going to be cleared off rapidly on the secondary and back roads. So yeah, that's going to be the impact. And I believe, at least based on what I've showed you today, it will be worse the farther south you go. I think we got all the questions answered here. I'm just going to roll through here again. And yeah, so I think we've got that. I did want to, instead of Science Corner tonight, just kind of reiterate some things you should be doing now ahead of the storm. And the main thing is just be prepared. Now, obviously, if you're watching this stream, you're doing thing number one, which is stay alert to the weather and get the latest information. The second thing is make sure you have emergency supplies, especially in your car. If you get caught out there in near zero or sub-zero wind chills, you're going to need a blanket, a heat source, candles, whatever it is, food, and water in your car, a shovel, all that stuff. Charged cell phone, very important to have if you're going to be trying to travel. We say this, and I know this is, and none of these things are necessarily easy. Changing travel plans is very difficult if you're flying or you have an event-sensitive, a time-sensitive thing, a wedding, a funeral, a birth, something like that. So, but if you can, you should already start thinking about adjusting your plans for the weekend. And top off your tank, in your car. Pets, don't forget them. It's going to be extremely cold this weekend and next week. Bring them on in, or at least make sure they have dry, warm place to shelter in the storm. And then after the snow stops falling and you get out there and start shoveling, take it easy. It's going to be extremely cold, which puts even more stress on your body. So, don't try to be the Iron Man out there and get it all knocked. Get some kid in the neighborhood to do it. If there's a kid in the neighborhood. If not, though, just be mindful of that and, check in on family and friends and things like that. We say over and over, don't travel. But I realize, a lot of people work, and firefighters, nurses, people have jobs, coal miners, everybody that has to be at work. And so, just take it easy and do the best you can out there. But if you have the option not to travel, don't. Okay? I think that pretty much covers everything that I have for you this evening. Now, as I'm talking right now, we are getting new data on the GFS model updates here at this hour. So hopefully we'll have a little better fix on what to expect on 14 News at 10 tonight. And what I'm going to be looking at is the track. Did it change at all or significantly from the model data we got early this afternoon and this morning? And that's kind of how we have to do it. We look back and then, note the changes and then compare models. And so that's the best tool that we have. The models have gotten a lot better in recent years. Sometimes they still miss in a big way, but more often than not, they're pretty much onto it. Now, on Sunday night at 11, if you only have 2 inches in your in your yard or none, that is wrong, at least from the forecast perspective. Just be glad, right, that it went the other way. But we want you to be prepared, and that's why we're talking this up. That's why the alert days. And hopefully we've given you enough information here that it's clear that we are expecting impactful accumulating snow across the tri-state. That's the 14 First Alert Weather Show here for 9 o'clock. I will see you again on 14 News at 10. Byron Douglas will be in bright and early tomorrow morning. Of course, he'll have a stream here at 8:30. Followed by Arden Gregory with our 11 to noon, or 11 to 1 weather show there, and then she'll have the stream at 2:30. Michael Fecka's in for me tomorrow night. I'm off for MLK Day, but I'll probably see you over the weekend. All right, stay safe. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.